So one of the most sought after skill for being a musician today is having the ability to sight read the piece fluently with near perfection. But given the groundwork for teaching as we know today, playing at sight was often neglected and is more focused on building up a repertoire. There are musicians who already developed a considerable skill in playing, yet it was limited to the pieces which they carefully worked out, and it isn't even an understatement. There are students who already can perform like a major work of Chopin, but still find it hard to decipher an easy keyboard sonata by Haydn at first sight. Only those students who studied at their own initiative have improved their sight reading. Those are the students who did not confine themselves to their current repertoire, but played in addition a much larger volume of music of their choice. Incidentally, there are good sight readers who have not taken any formal music lessons beforehand, and that's quite interesting. A musician can match his or her technical ability with their reading ability given proper knowledge and training. So what is the correct way to practice sight reading? A musician is usually considered a good sight reader if he can perform a piece perfectly, if not nearly perfect, at first sight. In other words, it's performing the piece with such fluency without having previously studied them. For such skill to develop, one should at first aim for both accuracy and evenness rather than speed. We should know by now that practicing to improve sight reading is completely different with working on a repertoire. Aside from the first time we read through a piece from the beginning, none of the strategies we use to learn a piece is actually helpful for sight reading. This includes repetition, which is when we read through a piece over and over again until we learn it, dissection, when we divide the piece into fragments and learn them separately before reassembling them back together, and imitation, which is what we do when we try to imitate how our teacher or a professional sound recording sounds like. When trying to practice sight reading, it's a rule of thumb to never practice the same piece twice, because then reading starts to become more of a learning. So that basically leads us to another tip, which is to read anything you can effectively. It doesn't matter what kind of music you try to read and play, whether it's from your favorite Disney movie or perhaps from your favorite anime, as long as you play the notes continuously and accurately no matter how slow they are. Another one I'd like to suggest but couldn't stress enough is to participate in chamber music. Try to build up your chamber music repertoire and see the results for yourself. Read new pieces with your collaborators. There's tons to choose from different eras. It's tedious yet a very fun thing to do. Plus, you get to improve your focus and listening skills along the way. For the next one, it's also worth remembering to look through the first few systems of the page before you start playing. Gather as much information as you can before even starting. It can give you a sense of direction to where the piece is going, how the articulation goes, and other stuff you might find useful so you won't be caught off guard as you begin. Of course, this also includes the key signature and the time signature of the piece. In some cases, playing the beginning of the piece correctly gives the momentum enough for you to move further making music. Last, but probably the most helpful tip is to pick a piece that's below your skill level. And there's nothing wrong with that. Besides, it's the better way to go if efficiency is what you're after. We have to keep in mind that while focusing on rhythm as we sight read the piece, we should also be able to recognize patterns and compositional devices that the composers used. Do this over time and you'll find sight reading easier once familiarity has already been established. It is almost often overlooked by most people, but one of the greatest advantages of having the ability to sight read is realizing how much it opens you up to various resources. The faster you read, the less time you consume in learning a new piece. And it works in any style of music as it is for classical. The difference it makes when you're not decoding the bar every single time while looking back and forth at your instrument just to know if you're playing the right notes is quite impressive. Like learning a piece of music, having the ability to sight read is also a skill that can be developed over time. It is something that can't be rushed but can be made easier and more efficient if done the right way. It's very common that your reading ability trails behind your technical ability, but there shouldn't be a huge gap between the two. Look for new materials which you're comfortable reading at a slow speed and notice results if done with consistency.